But I want to welcome you. Sheila, you're welcome to Praise Talk.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you. You have written a book, My Business is My Business. I mean, you just take a moment to just greet our viewers, basically.
Thank you very much for having me today. I very much appreciate being here. I consider it to be an honor, and I'm looking forward to the show.
Amen. Tell us a bit about yourself, Sheila.
Well, where do I start? It's a long journey, isn't it? I'm going to have to start off from when I started off my business. I started off my business in 2005, and the reason for starting up this business is because I was in a job where very often black organizations were always being put into supervision.
Right.
I used to be a financial regulator for the Housing Corporation at the time. And I found that majority of the time the problems they were having were around governance issue, financial control issues, and very often systems and processes that were not things that they really can grapple with. And so one day, the Lord laid it in my heart that it's time for me to go and set up a business. And the business has to be around helping people to start their own business and at the same time to grow their business. And I remember when I took the decision to leave a job, my family, they were extremely nervous about the choice I was about to make. But I was convinced in my mind that I was doing the right thing, because I know without a shadow of a doubt that this was the path to go, because very often when I work with these businesses, I can turn it around very quickly, whatever that problem is. And very often a business will come into my portfolio that is in supervision, and they'll be out within 6 months. So I knew without a shadow of doubt that I can help them, and it was time for me to go off and do it. And that's how business services support company started. And the book actually started off when, by the time I did a lot of coaching, I realized that majority of the time I was just repeating myself. Most times the same businesses were having the same problems, and I was literally just repeating myself. So I thought to myself, rather than repeating myself, I might as well just put everything on a toolkit and just literally give the clients the tools that they really need and just walk through it. And very often when people read the book, they realize that it's not a typical book. Because it's a tool. It's something that you have to walk through step by step and go forward with, and not just a book you read and just put off and then go off and read another book. It's almost like, I consider it to be a Bible for business. And that's what it is.
And that's how you came across, started the BSS Management Consultancy.
Yes, indeed.
And how successful has it been in the last years that you started?
When I started off doing training courses. And within the space of 6 months, I started applying for contracts. One of the first problem I came across was many people said to me, well, you do not have a track record of doing this, and usually you should be in business for at least 3 years for you to win a contract. Well, I was going to defy that rule. I then went ahead and applied for a contract, and I didn't get the first contract. Instead, what I got was feedback that I needed to put together build my resource capacity. So I went off and hired consultants and associates, and then went for the second contract, and I won it. And that was less than 12 months of trading. And that's changed the entire dynamic. And from that point onwards, I started working with a lot of public sector organizations. And as a result of working with these public sector organizations, what then happened, I was given the opportunity to work with 200 businesses within the space of 6 months. I had 200 businesses within the space of 6 months.
I perform magic with them.
not really. What happened was I ended up having about 3 associates that I was working with, and between the 4 of us, we were doing a lot of one-to-ones, and we were doing a lot of coaching and diagnostic review and advice and support, and the work just went on and on and on like that. And before I knew it, I ended up having another contract with another organization, and that landed me in a situation where we were doing training courses for public sector organizations. Some of these training courses would be 200 people. actually in one room that we're training. And I quickly realized that actually I've been called to do this, and I was doing it the way I believe that it should be done.
Yes.
Very often people come out and say to me after the training course is that there's something different about this training course, that the one that we've attended. And I realized that I wasn't the one just doing this training courses anymore. And I knew the spirit was part of it. It was not just my work. And everything just moved on from there. So I was at thousands, you know, I stopped counting after the first 2 years, because initially when you start a business, you kind of compile all this data, how many people have you seen, and I stopped after 2 years because I realized it began to get to the region of 1,000. If I go to a workshop for, say, an organization in a church environment, there will be about 200 people there. So you just stop counting after a while.
Okay, now for the benefit of our viewers this afternoon, for those of you that are connected with me on Facebook, and if you're not, please search for me, Praise Asibota, on Facebook, and I always bring, useful details, useful information to you. Now, on Facebook, I said to my friends on Facebook that today is all about money. And somebody would think, well, she hasn't spoken about money, so where are we going? Now, Sheila is somebody that, she's a founder of BS's Consultancy, management consultancy, and what she does is that she helps people who are in businesses to drive them to success.
Yeah.
Okay. Or people who also would like to go into business.
Yeah.
And would not. You haven't had the experience on how to manage your business. She would help you personally or through her workshops to help you drive you to success. So maybe probably there's somebody out there that's thinking, I want to go into business, and it's probably part of their New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
For 2011. They've put it off for so long and think, no, next year I must do it. What is the first thing that you would say to that person?
I would say, what is the motive for you to want to start up a business?
Right.
It's so important, because very often people are thinking of starting a business with a wrong motive.
Okay.
One of the motivation could be just to make money, which, whilst I appreciate that we all need money to buy goods and services,
yes,
but that should not be the primary motive for starting up a business.
okay.
There has to be something beyond money for you to want to start up a business, and that is service.
Right.
If you can
Service before money.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Because
Okay.
if the primary motive is to give service, then you are likely to serve your customers well.
Yeah.
On the contrary, if your motivation is primarily to get money, what then happens, you are not going to be concerned about serving your customers very
Yes,
well.
yes.
So the first thing I always ask, what is the motive? Sometimes the other motivation, which I consider to be a negative motivation, could be around, I really want to escape my current job.
Okay. You want to start business because you don't like the job
You don't
that
like
you're
the
in.
job that
Okay.
you're in.
Okay.
That
Okay.
in itself is also another challenging motive. Simply because you don't like the job you're doing does not mean you qualify or you are ready to start a business.
That's true.
And very often the negativity that you
Passes
are...
on to-
Exactly. The negativity from the old job is
Yes.
passed on
Yes. Yes.
to the new business
Yes.
you're creating,
Yes.
simply because the motivation again was negative.
Yes.
And so therefore there has to be a pure motive. It has to be around, you've come to that point where you believe that the talents that you have can be better enhanced in a business environment.
Okay.
And you're looking for support from someone who can enable you to develop products and services that you can use to help others around and get paid for that.
Okay.
And so that for me is the primary motive, the first question I always ask. There have been times when clients have come to me and said they want to start a business, and very often I will then say to them, if my spirit feel that this is not the right thing, I'll tell you.
Wow.
And I'm not a typical business advisor for those of you watching this program, because a typical business advisor has been trained to just help, say, okay, fine, that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I work with the spirits. If the spirit says no, I wouldn't work with you.
Wow.
I would either direct you and say, I do feel, I'll ask certain pertinent questions and ask if you have thought loud and clear within yourself that that is the right way to go, because it might be that the talents that you have is not being used, and all you're looking at, I want money today, I want money today. And the God-given talent that you have, you can use it.
What would make room for
Exactly,
you.
and that's what will make a room for you, because you will work passionately in whatever you already have, not something else.
Right. That is so fantastic. So I hope that you look at the motive behind you wanting to start the business. Is the bottom line of it. Now, for somebody who has been in business, and for some reason throughout, not just this year, 2010, but probably for the past 3 years, through the recession, they have struggled. Okay. First of all, I want you to know as well that Sheila's details would be on the screen for you to contact her, and she does coaching, and she would be able, even if you have an organization and you want to organize a business meeting for your people in your congregation, please feel free to contact her, and she would be happy to speak to you and also to come down to a seminar. It's a service that she's offering to you, so please bear that in mind. As somebody who's been in business and has had some struggles, what are the things that, I mean, it's a bit of a difficult question, because you have to probably look at the specific business and the strain of their strain. But what are the, just for, on a general basis, what are the things that someone should look at if their business is struggling, or they're, going through some form of frustration?
Okay, very first thing I'll normally do is to do what I call a business diagnostic review.
Okay.
And usually what that means, we go through every facet of the business to see what is working and what's not working, because there's always strength within every business anyway, as well as areas that are not working. Right. And what tend to happen, people underestimate the strength because it's natural to them, and they think that it's natural to everybody, and focus on just the weaknesses. So we will look at the strength, we will look at the weaknesses, and look at ways that these weaknesses can be overcome and enhance the strength. Very often the strength is where I will focus. Because that's where a lot of times, that's where the beginning of the change could take place. And then, of course, the spiritual dimension have to be looked at. I'll give you an example of what I did with a lady whose business she was turning over like £260,000 in like 4 years back. And then what had happened is that this business had declined to the point where it was now folding up. And that was the stage at which I met with her. And when I met with her, the first thing we did, I remember when I met with her, she said to me, "Why am I meeting with you, Sheila? I don't even understand why I'm meeting with you, because actually the business is bankrupt." So I said, in my belief, everything can be resurrected even if it's dead. And so for those reasons, I think there is a reason why you're meeting with me. So let's go spend time in Nero and just have a coffee and tell me about your business. Well, when we went to Nero, quickly I could see that the skill set that this lady have in construction hasn't changed. She's still passionate about what she does. She still loves what she does. But what has changed is that in the year when the business started declining, that period actually was when she was having a divorce. Okay. So the divorce that she had knocked her confidence. And that lack of confidence in herself and her self-esteem had all gone downhill, is what has now crept into her business and was manifesting in the form of a decline in business. Now, well, I have to ask personal questions, because I know that nothing fails without what's going on in the background that people don't see. There's always a bigger picture. So I always ask people what's going on at home, and what's going on in their mind, and what's going on in their head. So not just what's, So by the time we do those diagnostic, I could see that that was the relationship that has created that problem. Well, the husband had gone. The children are with her. What we can do is the best with the situation. So I had to say to her, look, you have the skill set to carry on with your business, and so therefore you cannot carry on feeling sorry for yourself. The best you can do is pick up yourself and start going forward again for the sake of your children, if not for yourself. The moment she can see that, and there was a powerful book which I just read, and I linked her up with that book because some of the story that she was actually articulating with me related to this particular story that's in the book.
Yeah.
So I said, can you read that book? Because actually you find a story of yourself in that book. And when she read the book, she came back and said, oh my gosh, you know, I could see what you mean. I'm now going to go ahead with my business. We did, well, there was the prayer side of it. But beyond that, so what we then did, we do the business plan, we did the policies. There were certain things that she was having problem with. She's working in the construction industry, and very often it's a male-dominated industry.
Right.
She did not feel that when she met with clients were taking her very seriously. And so therefore she wanted to call herself the project manager instead of the managing director, which I didn't think was necessary, but we went down that route anyway.
Right.
But then by the time we put together all the tools that she needed, she started going out there selling the services to big construction industry, which she said, by the way, she was never able to get those contracts.
Wow.
In less than 2 months, she won her first contract.
Again.
By the time I saw her 2 months later, she had won the second contract.
Wow.
When she called me, that by the 6 months when she was calling me, she said she has a different problem. What was the problem? She has more work than she had people to do with.
Wow.
So I said to her, well, this is a good
problem.
you know, a bad problem is when you don't have anyone who wants your service. A good problem is when you have people who want your service. Now you have a problem about getting staffing.
Indeed.
So things can change. Things change when people understand what's going on, and nothing, you know, if you see failure within a business, very often it is actually radiating from the mind. There's a connection in the mind and what happens to the outside.
Do you know what's interesting, Sheila? This is God speaking. And the reason why I say that is that I had a very interesting dream last night. I mean, the day before yesterday. But the part of the dream that I would like to bring out is that I was speaking to this individual in the dream, and I wanted to put together a course. And the person said, and it was so vivid, the person said, I want you to put together a course that has to do with the brain. It says some neurological course, and I mean, the person used some really strong terms in this dream. That I was thinking, and the person is a spiritual figure, you know, to my life personally. But then it was very strange that in the dream he said, I don't want you to put together a spiritual course, or a course that has to do with the normal things that you'd find in church. He says, I want you to put together a course that has to do with the brain. Because there are mindsets that needs to be changed. So I was, you know, and what was interesting, in the dream, I said to myself, I hope I would remember when I wake up, which was very interesting, you know, because I have had, it's on very, very rare occasions that I'll have dreams and I'll be conscious that I'm actually dreaming, you know, that I'm dreaming. And I woke up and this thing was in my mind. And I spoke to my my nanny, and I told her that bit. She said, Praise, if somebody's mentioned about the brain, it has to do with mindsets. So there's so much that's going on in the minds of people that needs to be changed. And here we are this afternoon. This is a live show. And you mentioned this, that it has to do with business, but you also have to look at the mindset of people. Where are they at that moment in time of their life? Is it adding to success, or is it adding to failure? Exactly. You know, and this is God speaking to somebody out there, because probably what is stopping people sometimes is not contact, it's not money, it's not the ideas, it is the mindset that is saying you can't do it. Exactly. Why you? you know, you African, or you're black. I mean, you have this to me, there's a silly things now that people say. In these days, I don't think it really matters anymore. But you still hear people say that. You don't have your papers. I mean, you know, if one can permit me to say, the enemy uses that as a stronghold in the minds of people to hold them back from their success.
Yeah. And that's one of the, when people read my business is my business, very often when people come back to me and say, oh my gosh, that's it. In chapter 6 of the book, it talks about the psychology of amassing financial wealth. Right. I looked at this subject. I had a very strange encounter. I was praying, and then I remember one night, this encounter was very, very, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and what happened was, I heard a voice says, the habits of the mind. I asked God in my prayer, and I said, can you tell me why things don't change? Why things don't change? Why is it that something changed and this don't? And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I just had the habits of the mind. Well, I have a lot of books in my library, so I thought, okay, let me go and read. I must be dreaming about one of my books. So I went up and tried to look for a book called The Habits of the Mind. Well, I never found a book called The Habits of the Mind. I actually went to the library and asked if there was such a book called The Habits of the Mind. Nobody could tell me where this book was. So obviously, so that my husband doesn't think that something is going strange with me. I never even mentioned to him that I had this word talking about the habits of the mind. And then a week after, I had the same dream, on the same word came to me, 3 o'clock in the morning, the habits of the mind. This happened 3 times. It was the 3rd time when it happened to me. Then I told somebody, and someone said to me, Sheila, I think what you're telling me is in the Bible. So I said, what do you mean by that? So you remember that guy called Samuel and Eli? What you just explained to me happened to you is something like that. So I said, oh, I never took this so seriously. Let me go find out about the mind. Okay. That was the change of my life, because I started researching about the mind. Right. And what I put in my book in chapter 6 covers explain to people that they are not who they think they are. Okay. And give a picture of how the mind is, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, and how it relates to the God mind. Wow. And how our conscious mind have been conditioned with certain rules and certain concepts. And these concepts and rules are now becoming flesh and blood in our lives and stopping us from doing things. And we don't understand how it works, and so therefore we think that someone else is doing it when in fact it's in us. Right. And unless that consciousness is changed, nothing else changes.
Now, how can someone change that consciousness?
Well, the first thing is the beginning of the change is when you're aware of what's going on in your head. The moment you begin to hear it yourself and begin to ask yourself the question, where did I come from? Why did I behave like that? Okay. You become the awareness.
So you become accountable to yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
You become aware of it, and then you begin to say, well, hang on a minute. Why do I believe this? Who said it's true? You remember this? You remember the story I told you? I was told that nobody wins a contract.
Yes.
Unless they've been trading for 3 years.
Yes.
Well, if you believe that is in the consciousness of a lot of people's mind. Well, I didn't believe that. I challenged that. Right. And then I remember going back to people and say, well, hang on a minute. I've just won a contract. I've not been trading for 3 years. I just broke that rule. The moment you start breaking rules that you are believed in, you begin to make a headway. Right. Now, if I hadn't broken that rule, I would not have been able to put a training course for people who have not been trading for 3 years to go off and win contracts. And in fact, I did that in less than 12 months. There was Arita Consultancy. Right. She came to me in 2008. In January, came to the workshop. By March, had won a contract. Wow. This was a startup business. Wow. In 3 months, won a contract. Wow. Somebody who has been trading for 7 years, a consultancy, said to me, they've never won any contract. I say, fine, I'm giving you this toolkit. This is how you do it. Won 7 contracts with the London Development Agency. Right. I ended up writing a letter to London Development Agency telling them that, do you know that company you've just given 7 contracts they use the teaching that I teach them.
Wow. Now, you talked about the tools. We've got the book here. The tools is something else. It's another product that you sell?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell us about how can people get that tool?
These tools are already present on my website, which is businessservicessupport.com.
The details, yeah, your website. Is
Yes, so you
yeah.
could go to SheilaElliot.com and there's a link there for business services support anyway. You go straight on there, you'll find all these tools there.
Okay.
And these tools have made a lot of difference in people's life who felt that they were not able to do things, which I personally had to challenge them.
Right.
If you come to any of my sessions, you will see very often people will say to you, in the presence of Sheila, you do not talk about, I cannot do it. In fact, if I make a mistake at home and say I can't do it, my daughter knows me, and my daughter will say, wait a minute, you just said I cannot do it. You told all of us not to say I cannot do it. Because I work on the belief that you can do everything, and I believe that is the case because when you take you as this small you out of the way and realize that you are bigger than the you because there is someone bigger than you that operates within you, you will know you can do everything.
Yes.
And that's the
I feel so empowered even right now. I'm very serious about this. I'm so empowered about, and you also you empower women, okay, for business and finance.
Yes.
Okay. We've talked about the business side of things. How do you coach people into getting finance to support their businesses?
Okay, finance is been one of the challenge, especially in today's environment, where most of the banks are not actually lending to small businesses, and small businesses who have in the past, even when things were good, have not been able to raise finance, are even in a worse situation than they were before. Okay. But the good thing is there is a system which many businesses out there don't know about, microfinance institution. Then microfinance institutions are present in the United Kingdom, United States, even worldwide. But these are not high street banks. They are very often the alternative banking institution that you go to raise finance, and they will not require you to have the same level of collateral that a bank will ask of. Okay. So in the United Kingdom, for example, you have GLE1 London, you have North London business. You have Croydon Enterprise, although at this point in time they're not lending because of the fact that I think they're going through some kind of reorganization. Okay. But you do have microfinance institution. And so what we do, very often we are I help and my associate help these individuals to put together the business plan for finance, and then we link them up in the first instance. We will link them up with the bank, but it doesn't matter whether the bank give them the finance because we know of these alternatives anyway. Usually, the alternatives will not entertain a discussion with them unless they also have approach the bank
They've been
first.
turned down by the bank.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we would take them to this alternative and raise finance for them through that way. And that's how we help in this particular area. Now, one of the things that a lot of them don't know about is what are the qualifications they're looking for, what are the criteria they're looking for. Now, because we already have that inside information, we know how to put together the business plan to make it viable and to make it meet these criteria. Right. And when we put them together, very often that's the time we put forward the application for the funding. Okay. Otherwise, it's pointless going straight onto them with the wrong business plan that does not meet most of the criteria, and they just get to answer no. And if you are already in the system with a no, it's pretty hard to come back to yes. Okay. And the mistake a lot of them make, they rush off and just go off and they go and put the business plan that is not properly prepared, and then they get a no. Which
is what somebody probably might just think that, okay, she's just spoken about microfinance companies. I'll go to the website, I'll go to the internet, and I'll log in, and then I'll just, make an application.
Exactly.
It is not a good advice. You just heard her. Because once you've had a no, it's very difficult for that no to be turned into yes. So what we're doing here is asking you, if you see yourself into business, you want to go into business, probably you are already in business, but you're going through a financial challenge at the moment and you need some enhancement. Sheila is here and her details are on the screen. We want you to give her a call. We want you to contact her via her website. She has experience, not just experience in her business, but personal experience and personal success stories of how she's helped other people to gain contracts, to gain success in their business. Contact her today. It's a good opportunity for you to start the year 2011 with. Carry on, please.
Okay, so we will put together these business plans and then put forward the application. But then what also we will do, we will accompany them to the...
You go with them as well?
Yes.
Oh, bless.
Sometimes what happens for many of them, they perhaps are nervous in terms of presenting